places and spaces. We're super excited to be in time and space with you all. Welcome to Brave Voices in Education. This is our podcast where boldness meets brilliance and healing meets hustle. I'm Craig Aarons Martin, educator, advocate, and curator of Courageous Conversations. This space is for those who refuse to shrink, and I hope that y'all enjoy this cup of courage today. Let's brave it together. So, y'all, I'm excited. I am super dope. Like, mine is blown because I actually am in community with some incredible folks from the Massachusetts Commission for LGBTQ youth. Before we even begin, just want to just extend some happy Pride Month energy to y'all. Happy Pride Month, baby. So, not only do I have the honor and pleasure of serving as a commissioner for the Massachusetts Commission for LGBTQ youth, but today I'm in community with some of the boldest voices in education, advocacy, and joy. These aren't just guests, they're fam. Let me introduce you to our panel, and I hope you're ready because each one of them not only makes me a little nervous just because I'm excited, I'm ready to jump into it, but each of them also bring heart, healing, and a great fire to the work and walk of our time. So we have Avery Berry. Avery is a 20-year-old rising, actually maybe older than that, but a rising young person in scholar at Bridgewater State University, majoring in biology, but don't let the age fool you. Avery is a commissioner, a visionary, a connector of movements. Her work is rooted in the intersections of trans justice, racial justice, and environmental justice, weaving together ecosystems of equity that make the future not just possible, but sustainable. Avery reminds us that young voices aren't the future, they're the force right now. Then we have Cameron KC Fontaine. KC is the fieldwork administrator for the Teaching and Teacher Leadership Program over at Harvard Graduate School of Education. Beyond the title, right? They are poetic powerhouse and queer education strategists who is reimagining how schools see and serve LGBTQ IAS2 plus communities. From climbing rocks to dismantling systems, Casey brings grounded brilliance into every space, building bridges, lifting voices, and planting seeds of justice. Then we have Adrian Romero. Adrian is an incredible student over at Berklee College of Music, studying music business. And trust me, he's not actually graduated. Yes, graduated, because as the time I was writing this, had not graduated, but has now graduated, y'all. So y'all better go ahead and put some love in the chat. Not only preparing for the industry, but reshaping it. Adrian uses his artistry and advocacy to amplify ethnic and cultural narratives within the LGBTQIAS2 plus community, where he's building soundscapes for social movements. Adrian is creating space for all of us to be heard with rhythm, reverence, and radical love. And then we have Ali Kelly. Ali is actually a graduate who is already turning policymaking into a love language for the queer and trans community from their work with the Massachusetts LGBT Chamber of Commerce to dreaming big and economic equality. Ali brings both strategy and soul to the table. Their vision to serve our community professionally, permanently, passionately, and powerfully. Let's get into it, y'all. This conversation is a swirl of story, strategy, and soul. We're gonna be talking about all the wonderful things that bring joy to this work, but also grounds us in purpose, and also steers us closer to what liberation can look like when it's led by folks who embrace both joy as well as radical change. So, I would love for each of you to actually share a brief glimpse of who you are today and share what's on your heart and mind so that we know is in this space. So I'm gonna go ahead and welcome our wonderful panelists to go ahead and join us from here. So we'll start with Avery.
So I think, well, first off, happy Pride Month. That's always like a good place to start. I think right now there's kind of a lot on my mind, a lot on my heart, especially going into this Pride Month where it's a different space for me personally. It's a different space a lot of times, like in the world with a lot of stuff going on. I think personally going into this Pride Month, I think it's a bit of a difficult one, honestly. So much like happening personally, professionally in the world. It's always like a little bit much to manage, but I think that's always times where things like this, things where we can like share our joy, share the things that make us proud, share the things that make us happy, and like kind of reflect on ourselves, see, how far we've come in some ways, how much we can still go further within our work, within our personal lives, everything like that, I think is all really exciting. I'm like right now just in my personal life doing classes, doing research, just doing all of that and continuing the good work. Um, and just like trying to keep positive during the month. I think it's can be one Pride Month where we really need to like share our community, share our family, be really positive influences, especially for youth voices across the state who are seeing so much happen in the world, so much happen in the country that might like change their perspectives, might make them feel a little bit lost, a little bit hopeless. And I think it's especially a time where we can come together and really be like positive people to share with them in their lives and just all work together to sort of make each other feel a little bit better.
Okay, do you want me to go next?
Yes, Tracy, thank you.
Okay, cool. Happy Pride, y'all. I'm so excited to be sharing space with fam from the commission and everyone who is joining in live. Avery, so much of what you just said resonates with me. I think this Pride Month, I am personally really struggling. And I'm also so stoked to be surrounded by beautiful, bright lighthouse students. And so I am just thrilled that I'm in a place at Harvard where I don't have to look to my institution for moral guidance. I can look to my students, my teacher candidates, all of the students across the entire university who are out there putting together their celebrations in the face of institutions who would pull their funding. I am so excited that I get to see queer kids in schools, PK through 12 schools all across the Boston metro area all the time, just living their beautiful, brilliant little lives. Um, and that is like really fueling pride for me. Every single moment that I like get to see um, a student doing the big brave thing in the face of a bunch of adults who would just not prefer to have it happening, I'm like, yeah, power. So I'm feeling good about that, even if for me as like a child who's 4 decades old, it's a little tough out there.
I would agree. Adrian, you want to jump in and then
Yeah,
whatever?
yeah, for sure. Happy Pride Month, everybody who's watching. Thank you so much, Greg, for allowing us to have this space to share our feelings, share our thoughts, share our joy and our pride for who we are and our individuality. I'm feeling very positive this Pride Month, and I'm going into it with just an open heart and understanding that there's a lot of erasure happening of our community or attempts to be erased by our political system that is failing us. And so I think at times like this, June 1st comes around and we're all reminded, hey, it's not just a month, it's a whole year of celebration that we need to be uplifting our voices and uplifting the youth community as well. And so I'm grateful to have a space like this to be able to share that love and that joy with all of you and everybody who's watching. So thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Craig, again for having us. I'm really excited to just kind of have this discussion and be in community in this way. Recently, life for me has been looking like doing a lot of work. I work at Smith College in Northampton, helping students get accessibility accommodations. I recently adopted a puppy, which has been such a source of joy. And also, I am so tired. My friends always joke that I'm basically the teen mom in the group now. I'm like, I gotta go take care of the baby. So I feel like, yeah, this is also a really interesting political time where I feel like for me personally, I have been kind of some of my most engaged in community building. I started doing drag around last year and organizing this year, so that's been a really great way to kind of be meeting people and being intentionally creative, and being really involved in my community in that way, while also on a greater kind of socio-political scale. It's not great being queer and trans. I'm always pretty, cautious in a way, but also I feel like lately that has been really, I've been pretty, self-aware and on edge about these things. Anytime, particularly, I've been traveling lately, that's been very at the forefront of my mind. So balancing those things, but again, just being really excited to have that place to be affirmed and to resist and kind of create opportunity for other folks in the community.
I appreciate each of you for just leaning in just a little bit more. And I recognize that, I was very much like an 80s baby. And I had to grow into a bravery of understanding that I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, spent a lot of time really learning more about what it meant to be part of the queer community, in nightclubs, in spaces of silence and closets. And I also found that some of my experiences were resonant in books that I was reading in the library. It took me a little longer to come into Boston and find myself really embracing different facets of who I am as both a Black and queer man. And so, one of the things I really think about in my journey that is really inspired by like Dr. Brene Brown. She says that, or something I'm thinking about with this is bravery isn't about being unafraid. It's about a willingness to be fully seen on purpose, with purpose. And so I'm curious for each of you, and feel free to jump in whatever way you desire. But I'm curious for you, when did you realize that your existence was both political and poetic?
I can hop on in if no one wants to take this. I guess this question kind of makes me think back to being a teenager and kind of first coming out. First, kind of generally as queer, as using lesbian as a term for myself, and that was really kind of easily accepted by my family without a bat of an eye, and being like, oh, that was so easy. Like, what was I worried about? And then shortly after coming out as trans and non-binary, and very much not receiving that same kind of level of acceptance and understanding, and realizing that, I was starting to have family members who I have known and loved my entire life who are now viewing and treating me differently, and realizing that, before I was kind of coming out socially to my friends, put myself in a position where I was kind of half in and out of the closet, and being really precarious and anxious about where I'm kind of being my full self, and when I'm not in the situation that kind of puts you in. I feel like that really made me understand like how politicized just like being yourself and like having and holding a trans identity is. But on the other hand, like recognizing that like the beauty of like being able to be myself and to be seen by however many people who see me as I am, and to be able to reflect that, is kind of ultimately worth all of that sacrifice. And if me being myself causes some people to be less engaged with me or less respectful, like that is kind of a choice that they're making and not one that I'm making. So I feel like, you know, there's a lot of, you know, hurt and pain and politics in that, but also I think a lot of poetry and kind of, you know, the beauty of like creating your own kind of chosen family, and being able to lean on others when perhaps the people that you anticipated to lean on perhaps aren't in that position anymore.
Really appreciate that, Ollie. Adrian, were you leaning in to share a little bit more context as well?
Yeah, for sure. I can't necessarily say that there was a specific time where I realized, oh, this is political, but it's always just been a feeling of, okay, well, where are the people who look and identify the same way as me
Mhm.
in political systems, in places of power? Why do we not have that voice? Why are we not there? And so for me, I'm now going to be preparing for law school, and I just feel like there's such an importance in getting an education and being the identity that I am, being a queer person of color, and getting into these spaces where we're not commonly seen. Uh, I just think that it's so important. I think education is one of the ways to get there. And so I think it's very political, especially right now, for us to just exist. And I don't understand why. And I want to go and pursue an education that will allow me to just dismantle those legal structures that work against us. And I think that it's beautiful to see other people who are, and getting to watch those few percentages of people who look like me, people who identify the same way that I do, seeing them in those places and get there makes me feel like I can. And I know that once I get there, hopefully other people can be inspired to also want to pursue an education and pursue this higher education and getting these degrees that can help support the rest of our community.
It was in my classroom, y'all. My fourth graders taught me the word non-binary when I didn't know it. So, you know, I got to introduce them to, um, you know, books and poems and all that kind of thing, but they introduced me to myself. Um, and I think there's something very poetic about that. I think there's something very political about the fact that so many people want to say that we're grooming children or we're teaching them these things or we're like creating these identities in kids. And it was my kids, it was my 10-year-olds who were like, are you sure you use she, her pronouns? Are you sure you don't? What's going on here? And I was just like, it was a beautiful and really humbling experience to have my kids introduce me to myself.
Hmm. Could you lean in a little bit more? Fourth graders, like how were fourth graders holding that as a container, and also I guess creating safety for you? Because I think that that's also something that's really interesting. We don't talk about the fact that I think young people are actually more uh, open and more willing to love, willing to lean in, stay curious. And so I'm just curious if you would give us a little bit more context to that, because that seems so powerful.
Yeah, and this was in Houston, Texas, just to say. So the education system there was like not friendly to this, right? But the kids are all right. They were looking up stuff on TikTok. They are queer already. Many of us have this experience, right? Of like knowing something, even if we don't have words. And my kids were brilliant. All of us as children are brilliant, and they found their words. And so they also introduced me to those words. I had a book tub in my classroom with, you know, a rainbow label, and like I was asked to remove a lot of the books from my classroom by my administrators, and I was like, oh, you can come and take them if you want. That's sweet. I knew that I was queer, but I didn't know that I was non-binary, and that gender identity stuff was like not on my radar as a person in my 30s. Like I did not have that vocabulary. I didn't have access. And it's a mutual it's a relationship that holds mutuality, right? We say that we create safe spaces for children, and we do. We work to do that. But also kids are like they're brilliant. I don't even have the right words to describe that relational quality of like mutuality and freedom, right? Like when you're doing education well, you're creating like a liberatory space for children, but children are already free. So you don't need to really like do that for them. They're free, and in that moment they were freer than I was, and they had better vocabulary than I did.
That is super powerful. Thank you so much, Cameron.
And then for me personally, I would say it's something that happens at a lot of different points and something that's still very much ongoing for me personally. I think like I would say I first noticed it because the family that I come from has been conservative for like a long time. So pretty much like the only people with like particularly open minds in my family are my sibling and my parents. And I would say my sibling is where I get a lot of it from. They came out as bisexual when I was about 12. They're 4 years older than me. And I think from there, it was kind of really when this really started paving the way for me. They've always been like a lot of a role model for me. And they've just kind of showed that, like, oh, I can express myself in these different ways. And then me and my sibling both came out as trans. They're non binary. I identify as a binary trans woman. We both came out at the exact same month on January 2021. So that was a fun little experience for both of us. And that was something we kind of learned together. And I think that was also when I started learning a lot with my friends. I started making a lot more people within the community, just kind of hearing a lot of different perspectives. I think also really kind of influenced my perspective, gave me a lot of sort of confidence in my own self, which is where I would say I am now. I'm at kind of the point where, people will say however many things they want about me. They'll, people at my school, people in my family, people at my job, everything they'll say about it, but it just comes down to me not really caring that much. I'm going to be who I am, really, no matter what they say. So that doesn't impact me that much. But that is still something that I'm very much ongoing. Still in college. The ups and downs of college are very interesting. Halfway through at this point, and there's certainly been ups and downs with my identity. And I think like I'm just kind of at the point right now where I'm really sort of starting to embrace that confidence, really starting to embrace kind of that self love, and trying to express that for others. I think, but I would say like kind of those 2 points are really like the biggest things. And also have to give a big shout out to when I actually really started to express my identity more, which was actually when I first started working with the commission when I was like 15. So not that long ago in the grand scheme, but feels very long ago for me. And I think the people I met there have certainly influenced me a lot, as you can tell by the fact I'm still here. So,
Nice, nice. I appreciate each of you for sharing a little bit more about the tension that we navigate in regards to just the awareness, like the evolving awareness of who we are and how we're finding ourselves more comfortable in our own skin. And then how do we introduce that to the world? I'm curious for any of you, are there folks, role models who serve as beacons of light for you today that you look to, you lean to, or who are you carry in your spirit and in your walking way, um, that are continuing to inspire you or at least give you hope as we again continue to navigate some spaces that are quite interesting today. Anyone can jump in. This, I love a good double Dutch match.
I think for me personally, taking it closer to home, it'd have to be my dad. I think that my parents were both raised in Mexico, so grew up in very traditional Mexican households. And my dad has pushed through so many of the barriers that come with being somebody who's not from this country, and has done so much to provide for my family. And I remember when I came out to him, he said oh, that's totally fine, son, just as long as you don't steal anybody's husband. So it was just it's just been such an awesome experience to have parents who are so accepting of your identity and so supportive of it and so curious and keen to learn and to understand and to embrace having somebody with that identity in the family. And I think that their willingness to learn more about my community and to advocate for it has been such a beautiful experience. And I'm grateful to have had that, because I know some people aren't as fortunate. So I'm grateful that my dad has been such like a place of support, somebody that I could always rely on, somebody I could always look to for advice, for love, for support. And it's just been an awesome experience to have the parents that I have.
Hmm.
All right, I'll jump in there with you. You said your dad and my dad too. Aw, I'm like
Oh,
adopted, and he is like maybe the most gentle version of masculinity that I've ever sort of come across. And so I grew up really lucky to have a really expansive understanding of like what masculinity was, looked like, could be. And then of course my students who I'm desperately fighting the urge to like name who they are because I have to be careful and protect the babies. But so many of my students, and then Alok, oh, all the time Alok.
yes, absolutely.
I would say I don't even have like really specific names either, but kind of all of the adults that are part of the commission and were part of the Safe Schools program. When I was a teenager, I think seeing queer and especially trans adults in general was really life changing. And never mind just seeing them live happy, normal lives. I feel like at the time my brain was like, well, to live life, you get heterosexual married and then have children, and that's how it goes. And I don't want to get heterosexual married or have children. So I guess that's it. Like, I guess. I don't know. So seeing that there were ways to deviate from that path and still find a lot of happiness for oneself, I think was just really empowering and really important to see as a young person.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's been a lot of influential people in my life. It's a little bit hard to name specific names. First one I can think of off the top of my head is Chastity Bowick, who's been like an inspiration to me for years and years. Works on the commission. Being able to work with her on a project last year was like probably one of the highlights of my work so far personally. So I think she's always been a really big inspiration to me. And then also my mother. I've been told I look like my mother. We're like carbon copies of each other, which is a very good compliment. She's one of the sweetest people I've ever met. I love my mother so, so much. We're gonna go shopping right after this, so it's gonna be fun.
Okay, okay.
And then I would also say most of the students and residents I've worked with, because I'm a resident assistant at my college. And even though my residents are all about my age, if not a little bit older in most cases, they're just people that I love so dearly. They're all wonderful people. A job I really get into. And I think just being able to sort of have kind of that leadership role with people that are like so diverse and have so many different ideas has been something that I've really valued. It's something I valued throughout my time as a leader. I've worked with the Safe Schools program before as well, and like the students I've worked with there, both as a student myself and in sort of leadership positions, those have also been people that are continuing to inspire me to this day. Just kind of all of the students out there, I think, are like the people I would give the biggest shout out to because even though I'm still a student, I couldn't literally do it without any of my peers. So
Wow, that's powerful. That is powerful. One of the most influential folks. There's two people. One right now is my hubby. He's actually in the chat, Omari, and so I appreciate the fact that he continues to create space so that I can dare bravely to be all of me in different facets. I really wanted to wear this all pink outfit at church today, and he had some thoughts about whether or not I could celebrate Pride, in the church community the way I wanted to. And so, the compromise is I'll go next week and wear it. I, had to wear black and white so I could, sing. So a little simulation, little stuff I do. But one of the other people is actually on the chat as well as Dr. Felicia Blacher Wilson. So I met her in my undergrad year in New Orleans at Dillard University. And so she said that she told me in a conversation probably a few years ago that she knew that I was queer, even though I never introduced myself as such. And she was one who allowed us to be all the things and live loud and teach loud. And she understood that the fullness of what our young people can experience from a liberatory experience, or just knowing education transforms the way our young people can move. She created spaces so that we could lean into that fullness, that we would be able to, Brene Brown talks about that vulnerability armor, and just knowing that she would also be part of that armor to make me feel safe as I navigated the complexity of being black and male and queer in New Orleans, in which there were very much pockets that were very accepting, but also there were some pockets that weren't necessarily as nurturing and embracing of me in the experiences. And I also think about the young people who, for some reason, there was something about me that they were willing to talk to me about some of the things that was so deep in their spirit, some of the things that they may have cried out about. And I imagine for you today, you being incredible role models in your own right. I'm curious for you, as you look at where we are today, and we have our young people, our youth of varying ages who are looking to us for inspiration or direction, or wanting to ask questions or rage, because I can understand the rage that comes with why is it that people are trying to erase us? Why are they trying to, why are they creating such dangerous conditions for folks to thrive or just survive in? And so I'm curious for you, as you look at the landscape and you look at where you are in your ecosystem or ecosystems, because you may be in different places. I'm curious, what are you observing with young people? And what are you hoping that they actually are hearing, no matter what is the madness in the world? So I'm really curious, like, how are you engaging with young people? And also, what are some of the things you want to make sure that they dispel that are misconceptions that they may be holding on to and causing them fear or anxiousness or other feelings?
I think what comes to mind for me right away is the idea that any of this is new, that any of this is unnatural, that anyone's identity is not just beautiful and inherently good and gorgeous and wonderful, that it's some trend, that it's some thing made up on social media, that we're just like getting all these crazy ideas um, from a small teeny tiny little percentage of people. None of that is true. And I would want our young people to know that they are exactly as they should be, that their existence is just such an enormous celebration, that I personally am so freed up by all of the queer young people that I know, that I have been like lucky to learn alongside. Um, yeah, that their existence is liberatory and essential, that we need these kids here. We need young people here. I need each and every single one of you on this call here with me. Um, y'all are essential, and every single person who is watching and every single young kid who like stumbles across this somewhere on YouTube, you are so necessary to the world. Stay here with us.
I think that one thing I'm starting to notice, and at least in my ecosystems, is uh, the queer youth that's just a little bit younger than me. They're growing up in a space that seems to be more accepting than it was when I was growing up in it, and I feel like it's only going to get better. And it's so awesome to see how accepting parents are these days, and how wonderful and educated and keen they are to know more and to support their children. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of that around me. And for those who don't have that experience, I want you all to know that you deserve to be here. You're no different from any other person walking on the street. So have some courage, have some confidence, and put up in your step and strut your stuff. That's what I would say.
Right, for the strut. All right now.
I would say I usually work with and am kind of observing more typical college age students. So that's, a specific age range. But I'm really impressed by the resilience that, we're all kind of going through a lot all the time and trying to kind of understand the blueprint of the world and life while also everything greater is going on must be incredibly difficult. So seeing how they're showing up every day, showing up kind of as they are, and being kind of honest and vulnerable about the times that they're maybe not at full capacity or like things are not okay and yet they're still showing up. I have a real respect for that. And I would say as like a thing to keep in mind of, I feel like a lot of the times when I was younger, I felt very like not on the same timeline as my peers, so to speak. I feel like we weren't always kind of doing or understanding the world in the same way. And I often kind of felt like I was falling behind. But I feel like, if anything, looking back on it now, like I was almost ahead of the curve and that like I was bringing an understanding and empathy that like wasn't being reflected, that I thought was a fault of my own, or kind of thinking in different ways that I thought deserved ostracization. But I feel like a lot of the people who perhaps like weren't as open-minded in like high school or my hometown have like now really come around and been like, wow, like you've been saying that. So I feel like in the moment it feels really really isolating and very prone to self-doubt. But I feel like if you are aligning and acting like with your values and like what you feel and know is correct, like I feel like that's always going to bring you further or like put you in a better position than otherwise.
What I would say I've seen a lot from with mainly like college age students from like about 18 to 22, a little, sometimes a little bit younger, sometimes a little bit older. I would say is that there's a lot of times where I think people feel like they have to, I guess, justify themselves, justify their own lives. And it kind of gets to the point where it feels like their existence is something that they always need to sort of justify and explain. And I think I would definitely say to my other young people out there that there are going to be spaces and there's going to be times where you can just live like yourself, and you're not always going to need to be thinking about like, oh, is this how I should be expressing myself in this particular situation? And that through one way or another you will find spaces, whether now or within years or whether you already have found it, that there's going to be places you feel comfortable expressing yourself, and there's going to be places you can make other people feel comfortable expressing themselves as well. And the other thing I would really say is also just backing up your youth, where there's a lot of times where I think people that mean very, very well, this is something I see at my school a lot, say like things that are very much in support of queer youth specifically, but don't necessarily act behind that. So I think showing those youth that you do act for them, that you do take those actions, that you do care, I think is really the big thing. Whether it's like something small or something big, really taking that active step, going a little bit above what necessarily your job position requires to make your youth feel really welcomed and encouraged, I think is something that I can always really support.
Hmm. I very well wish I had you in my time of coming up, because each of you display such a level of um, steadiness in what you're sharing. Um, and I am curious whether or not, well, I'm going to lean into the affirmative. What is part of that recipe inside of you that has you so steady today? Because each of you have smiles on your faces. Each of you have shared, like, hey, here's some folks, or here are people who've been instrumental in my why, in your journey. And I am curious, like, how are you keeping this smile on your face and offering up, what I call love offerings, insights, and wisdoms when it may feel like it's the multiverse and there's all these other things going on in the world. And so I'm just curious if you could just share a little bit more about what's centering you in regards to just how you're showing up today.
I would definitely say it's moments like this where we can be together and kind of share our experiences as queer people. I think just having a great support system, whether that be family, chosen family, friends, or just the community in general, I think that keeps a smile on my face. And despite political turmoil, we have each other, and we're going to continue to fight and continue to push for our right to love the way we want to love, look the way we want to look, identify how we would like to. And I think getting to hear about other experiences and connect on that level, especially with people from the commission, that always puts a smile on my face, because at the end of the day, we're still here. We're still waking up in the morning and getting a breath of fresh air. And that's something to smile about. Not everybody's afforded that. So I'm grateful to be able to wake up in the morning and breathe. That keeps a smile on my face.
I feel like this has been kind of a theme throughout, but I feel like to a point, a big kind of component of things, I think, is having a dedication to myself and knowing that I deserve a level of love and respect, and affirmation that I can't always rely on external factors for, and that oftentimes if you are showing the standard of how you would like to be treated and what you respect from other people, oftentimes others will follow suit. And if they don't, like, just reminding yourself that, like, then they're kind of just not worth your time. And knowing that, like, things are difficult, but like we've all experienced difficult things before, and managed and survived. And that, at the end of the day, it's really, ourselves to rely on. And of course, there's always going to be community members and other people that we should have there to rely on. But ultimately, like, being able to rely on yourself and to know that you are resilient and reliable on yourself, and putting in that care, for yourself to be able to also share it with others, I think is a real kind of core tenet of being able to manage and smile and to be a person.
For me, I think would be just kind of keeping my goals in mind and I guess keeping my personal beliefs and my values in mind. Where I know that what I personally want to do is that I want to help encourage youth who might be struggling and encourage them themselves to be leaders in the future. So I just think about what have people in the past done that have sort of inspired that for me? How has that sort of come to be for me? How have I gotten to a space where I feel comfortable being in this position? And sort of trying my best to be the role model that I wish I necessarily had when I was younger. Did have plenty of role models, like I've said, but there definitely are, I think, words that I wish I had heard, and things, places that I wish I had been able to go to, stuff like that. And I think doing anything to open those doors for youth is really what I want to do. And I think it just, even if things are really difficult, I think being able to know that we're working towards that and being able to work towards that better future for youth and working towards a space where, kind of like Adrienne has said earlier, despite everything going on in the world, a lot of youth are growing up in spaces that are much more informed and are a lot more open. People are able to discuss things a lot more. And I think just knowing that we can keep pushing that forward really keeps me grounded and just kind of going, thinking about where we are and where we've been. Just no matter how difficult it gets, knowing that we can always try to make it better. And that just kind of centers me and kind of centers my goals for making things better in the future.
It's this, y'all. It's intergenerational spaces like this. It's like ancestral wisdoms. Craig, it's you. It's like seeing what you get up to, your enormous capacity. My God, like I just stand in awe of what you do. And then equally, I stand in awe, Adrian, Avery, Ollie, of y'all, and I stand in awe of like the students at Hugsy where I work, and I stand in awe of my fifth and fourth and third graders and my middle school kids. It's all of us that keep me grounded, and I need all of it because I often feel like ungrounded. So I need all y'all.
I know I feel the love deeply. I am I am here because there was a calling on my life for me to walk bravely in spaces where I wasn't supposed to actually I wasn't supposed to cross 21 and 25 in New Orleans. I wasn't supposed to still be alive because at that time early in my life, for Black men, we were, victims of gangs and violence. And today for Black men, we're dealing with a lot of anxiety and trauma and suffering in silence. And then if you lay that layer of queerness as well, it's just another dimension of isolation, having to navigate patriarchy and white supremacy, cultures. And I know for me, I'm a little further along, but I'm so grateful I'm in space that knowing that, okay, when it's my time, like I had, James Baldwin and Audre Lorde, and I had Elin Harris, and I think about Patrick Ian Polk. I think about Marsha P. Johnson. I think about Dr. Maya Angelou. I think about Sylvia Rivera. I think about Janet Mock. I think about Ryan Murphy. I think about so many folks who've made a decision that we are going to radically exist as all of ourselves, and that we have to do this in community. I have to know that for me, there are other folks who are looking at me who I've been in education teaching for over 20 plus years. And I understand that this work that I do, this love I have for you all is not soft, it's revolutionary. To do this aloud in the public, something I wouldn't have done 15 years ago. I have had to do so much work to love myself and know that I love you all harder, because if I do the work to love you, then I know that you may have the fuel in order to fuel the kind of movement or joy that's radical, because there's so many people who don't want to see us thrive. They don't want to see us smile. They don't want us to live in our authenticity. That's what Alok talks about, is what is actually the threat here, why it is that like 1% of the United States citizenship is actually identifies as either trans or gender non-conforming or non-binary. And to actually have this much hate and vitriol coming from a federal level speaks to the fact that there is a level of insecurity from the highest seat in the House. Because how dare you use a platform that you could actually humanize and love and foster connection in a way that absolutely will transform the way this globe moves and spins. But I'm preaching now. I'm preaching now. I see that. I'm sweating. I feel it. So one of the things that I want to make sure before we close out, and there's a couple of questions that I see have come through the streams. If no one hears anything else today from you, and they just get this, they get 1 minute of time with you right now in this moment as they're scrolling across their reels, or maybe someone shares this with them. What is the one thing that you want someone to dare bravely to hold on to? If it is a 5-year-old who has two moms and doesn't really know whether or not, they don't want to actually live within the gender binary in the way that conforms them in Nebraska or Louisiana or some country beyond, the United States. For that young person who is biracial, systems involved, and they just had a friend, pass your message on to them today. For that parent or parents and caregivers who are like, no one told me how to do this. No one taught, like, I didn't grow up understanding how to raise a queer or trans child. But there's something about you today that I'm leaning in a little bit closer. For that educator, for that policymaker, for that person who has always voted red and does not understand this thing about the LGBTQIAS2, like they don't understand any of that. They have questions about whether or not this is indoctrination, right? And so I'm curious, if there's anything you want any audience, you pick it, that you want them to actually make sure they hold on to from your lived experience and from what you are learning or unlearning about yourself, what would it be? You know, feel free to jump in.
We are, each of us, supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be here is the story that I tell myself all the time. I was born out of a sexual assault. I was not supposed to be in this world, except that I was. And so are you. So if you think I don't belong here, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah, very similarly. I was gonna say that like I feel like we all have a part to play in the bigger picture. And sometimes when you're so zoomed into your own life, it's really hard to see that and to know how you are impacting other people. But like there are people that maybe like you have walked by and never talked to. And they've been just inspired by like your gender presentation, or, you know, there are people maybe that you just make like small talk with at work or school that you think, you know, is insignificant. It may really brighten someone's day. So I feel like our impact is always so much larger and better and more important than we ever realize.
I think I'd like to speak to any of the queer brown folks who are watching this, that you are capable. I think we are living in a system that's been set up to not see us in spaces where we deserve to be, which is any space. And so I want any of you out there watching to know that you are capable. And I think that growing up as a queer person of color, like you're thrown these self-limiting beliefs that society puts onto you, and you just got to get rid of those because you can literally do anything and are going to do anything. So keep going, keep going, keep doing it.
And I would say probably just like being confident in yourself and taking control of what you want, no matter if other people think it's contradictory, I think is a big thing. Something that I've experienced a lot in my life as somebody who's queer, somebody who's religious, somebody who's a scientist. Things that people will say are very contradictory. There's no such thing as contradiction when you're living what you value and living the way that you want to. So just live your life without worrying about how other people think. There's things that will people will say and things like that, but what you value is ultimately going to be what you value, and trying to push it down is just going to make you miserable. So just live the way that you feel like you can, live the way you feel like is most true to you, and just sort of do with your life what you want to do in your future. Whether it's something that's like really niche, if you want to be like a musician with a really specific genre, go for it. Just like try your hardest. Just like be the future that you want to make, I guess is what I would say.
I would offer our joy is not decoration, it's defiance. And some people can't handle that we're still dancing after everything we've gone through. Be in community. Don't do this journey by yourself. Understand you are never the only one who has experienced what you're experiencing. Yes, your how you move and all of the things that may have happened with you in part of your journey may be your unique experience, but I'm sure that there are other folks who are here or beyond who are willing to lean in and listen to you with love. I also want you to also embrace that you were radically created for this moment and you deserve all of the happiness your heart can hold. That you have the ability to blaze your own trail in whatever way you desire, and honestly and earnestly fight for your own personal liberation to break out of whatever boxes and glass ceilings you think exist. Really look at the fact that you are beautiful and you were especially designed for who you are. You have a unique imprint that no one else has. And you're going to do something absolutely amazing. You are magical and you deserve to be here. And yes, it will get better. I believe it. And I think each of us are living testimonies that if we gave up, right? If we gave up, thousands or hundreds of thousands of people's lives may not be what they are. Some people may not even be here if we weren't here today. And so we're going to continue to dare and move and breathe and lead bravely. So, as we close out, I want to ask each of my wonderful panelists for something fun that you would love to also offer, whether or not it's a show, it's a song, it's an album, it's a practice that you would also want to offer to folks to hold on to and take with them so that they say, hey, I've had this call. I feel a lot of feelings. Maybe I want to try something that Ali shared today. Maybe I want to tap into what Casey has shared. Maybe Avery's recommendation to go to this place might be the thing. Adrian was on fire talking about this one show. I need to check it out. So if you have an offering that is fun and gives you joy as you think about it, and also if you want to tag, if you also want to tag yourself in some way, if people want to connect with you, also share that if you feel led. That is all, and also know that we are okay with people connecting with us through the commission as well.
Well, Craig, you've been doing some preaching. You said it yourself. So there is a little gospel album that I love to listen to at top volume. It's Jubilee Juneteenth edition, Maverick City Music.
Yes.
And the track is Freedom Looks Good on You.
Nice.
It's not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. It's not super all inspiring or necessarily LGBTQ relevant, but the show We Bear Bears always puts me in a good mood. It's a Cartoon Network show. It's three bears. One's a grizzly bear, one's a panda, one's a polar bear, and they're like found chosen family brothers, and they go on little adventures and they stack on top of each other and they walk around like that. It's really cute. Anytime I watch something really scary or sad, that's like my buffer before I go to bed.
I would share. There's a new single that came out by an up and coming trans artist. Her name's Eli, and she came out with a song called Marianne. You guys should go listen to it. She has a beautiful voice, and her songwriting skills are just amazing. And I know she has an album coming out soon, but this single just came out, and it's been playing nonstop, guys. You'll love it, and you'll be singing it all day. So Marianne, that's the name of the song. Go check it out.
For me, I know it's shocking the biologist is going to say something about nature, but I just love the thing I always love doing is just seeing some kind of animal and just realizing how cute it is to me. My thing lately has been jumping spiders, which I know is a controversial take, but I think those things are so cute. So just like any little animals you see out, like if you're going for a walk and you see like a seagull, just realize, oh, that's really cute. It's part of nature. It's beautiful. Or just like go like, some place that's really pretty, some natural space around you. Just kind of breathe in the fresh air. Just realize, how much amazing beauty there is out there and all of the cute little animals. And maybe you'll find something that you don't really know that you like.
Okay. And my offer would be Vibe Check, the podcast. I love Sam, Saeed, and Zach. They are incredible. Check it out. They always have incredible recommendations, and they're always quite the tour de force. So I love that as well. I want to thank each of you for spending incredible time with us. Incredible love and light to each of you as you continue the journey. Thank you so much for who you are and how you show up, as well as being part of our Massachusetts Commission for LGBTQ Youth. I am excited to share this with everybody tomorrow when we all come together. Good gracious, it is such a love offering. For folks, no matter where you are in the spiel, whether or not you catch this on a replay, we want to thank you for enjoying this edition of Brave Voices in Education. If something stirred in you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with your village, your team, your brave ones, because the braveness, your brave journey, daring bravely, is not about titles, it's about truth. And if you're out here building bold curriculum, creating classrooms that protect or affirm, or leading schools that love our queer and trans folks louder than the world tries to erase us, we see you. We want to hear your story, and we would love to continue the conversation with you. So please feel free to join, connect, like, subscribe to this Brave Voices pod. Until next time, generate your own joy. Never go it alone. Get free and always love your brave. Y'all take care.